For Jackie this morning, and joining us at the desk, good friend of ours from the Iowa Lottery, Terry Rich is here. So, Terry, what's up?
Pretty quiet.
Lottery? What's going on? Anything new?
Pretty quiet. Not too much new.
Wow, this has been a whirlwind, and I cannot believe it took 4 years to put an end to something that you and I first started talking about a long time ago.
We've been talking about it for about 4 years. I don't think it's over yet. There may be an appeal, but last week there was a conviction of a gentleman who bought the ticket and tried to sell it.
And again, you're talking about bought the ticket. Explain that for those folks that might not be.
It was 2010 when I got a call and said, hey, someone won Hot Lotto last night. And it was you'll hear four different numbers. 16.5 million was the annuitized value of the day that it was bought. 14.5 was when they tried to claim it. That's what it was worth. But 10.7 was the actual cash value, and that's always the same. And so anyway, won this great big jackpot. So we started saying, hey, come on in and get it. And it usually takes a couple weeks because people like to get with their lawyer or their accountant and figure out, what do I do with the money.
But you can figure out where it was purchased, though, right?
We knew where it was purchased. We knew what the person looked. I mean, we have just a little bit of security when somebody buys and sells a ticket to make sure, because it's important. When you go in and buy a ticket, you want to make sure that it's a fair game and that everything's set and that you have a chance to win. So nobody came forward, and about 11 months later, and everything I can say is part of the court documents, someone called us and said, hey, I have the ticket. I bought the ticket. And we said, okay, what do you look like? And this gentleman said, I'm 68, I live in Canada, and I wore a tweed shirt. Well, we knew the person that bought it was wearing a hoodie and was a little bit bigger than that and a little bit younger than that. So we said, uh-oh, something's screwy. But what really put the icing on the cake is that person decided that it really wasn't him. Didn't come in, but then sent someone from New York, hired someone in Des Moines, a couple of lawyers in Des Moines to come in and try to claim it. And then the bell started going off an hour and a half before it was to expire. So we knew something was screwy. So you got the DCI and the Attorney Generals all together. And I brought a little map. I think of all the things, I can't really talk a lot about the trial, but I can show you where I think the story went. So look at number one here in the middle.
Okay.
So somebody bought a ticket. The way the courts came out and what the conviction last week said, that this gentleman bought a ticket in Des Moines, took it to Houston, Texas, to two gentlemen, a gentleman named Robert Rhodes and Robert Sondheim, which was that gentleman's lawyer. And they decided after 11 months to try to get someone to claim it. So they contacted a gentleman in Quebec City, that's number two, Quebec City, Canada, and said, hey, cash this. So that's the gentleman that called us in November and said, hey, I've got the ticket, and called us, number three, in Des Moines and said, just send me the money. I'm going to send you the ticket. And we said, nah, I don't think so. So
now, is there a rule with the Iowa Lottery, and when it comes to this, where they have to appear in person to get the ticket or not?
Well, it is that we need to know it has to be legally purchased, legally possessed, and legally presented.
Got it. Yeah.
So it wasn't legally. We didn't know who purchased it, and we wanted to make sure it was legal. So we said, nah, I don't think so. So number four, he sent it back to Houston, Texas. Number five, who then said, well, let's see if we can get our guy in New York to do it. Number six, so they got it to the gentleman in New York, the lawyer in New York, who then created a company, number seven, in Belize.
Oh, of course. I forgot about that.
Yeah, created a company in Belize. But here's the kicker. When you see the court documents, the president of that corporation was the gentleman in Canada. So we knew the guy in New York and the guy in Canada 3 years ago. We knew those two were connected somehow. So we got a chance to talk to him. DCI got a chance to talk to him. And if you look at the final one, the guy in New York then contacted or flew it by FedEx to Des Moines, where two lawyers tried to present it. We said no. And they said, okay, we'll just give it back to you. We really don't want it. Our client doesn't want the publicity. And that's when the action really began. And I'm just amazed at what the DCI and the Attorney General's office, the work that they did along with our investigators. It was just phenomenal, and came with two convictions last week. And holy smokes, it was probably we call it fascinating now. It was mysterious before all of this. So it was kind of fun to get all of the things that we knew out into the public on how this all happened.
Is this enough to make a movie out of, you think?
Well, we had a couple of movie inquiries right out of the chute when we decided not to pay it. But there is enough interesting and fun and lots of stories, I think, yet to be told that we'll make it probably into a book or a movie at some point. I won't, but somebody probably will.
So you don't think the story is totally finished yet?
I don't think the story's totally finished. There's an appeal going on. We have another gentleman who was arrested, this Robert Rhodes, who was the friend of the person who was convicted last week, who is still trying to get, I think it's called extradition separation back to Iowa. Have to have a governor's warrant to do that. It's some legal processes, but I think that's the guy that has the other key to it. And when I talk about keys, I like to talk about keys because even though the defendant had a key and he theoretically could have done something to try to figure out what the numbers were, he didn't have all the keys. We work really hard to have 2 or 3. It's kind of like separation of duties in a system where we had the key. He couldn't buy a ticket. We had to produce a ticket, and that's what tripped him up on being able to do that. So we always have different layers of security whenever these happen. So this is the craziest thing I've ever been involved in. I'm telling you that.
That is absolutely bizarre, but a good outcome, just showing you the security system that you guys have in place, which is key.
It is. I call it a good outcome. I'm always more serious when I talk about something like this because we could be putting somebody in jail or a couple people in jail on this deal, and that's pretty serious when somebody messes up and makes a mistake.
It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have fun and play the game.
That's right.
Okay.
And we want it to be fair, and that's what we do. So that allows all of the customers and players to be able to have some fun with it, while we'll continue back behind to watch for all the crazy stuff like this.
Well, I tell you what is fun is if you actually do win it and didn't cheat.
Didn't cheat.
Like I was telling you earlier, I play Hot Lotto all the time. And how often does somebody actually win Hot Lotto or Powerball? How often do you see that happen, like each year?
Well, somebody wins all the time. It's not just one jackpot, of course. In fact, Powerball, we have nearly 20,000 winners every time we draw, and just in Iowa. But the big jackpot, we have probably 10 jackpot winners of Powerball. We have 2 or 3 in Hot Lotto. It's a smaller game, takes longer for it to build up and all those sort of things. So they're all designed just a little differently for people that enjoy playing in a different manner. And of course, Pick 3, Pick 4, which are are probably in our Asian heritage, love the Pick 3, Pick 4 because that's their favorite numbers, 1, 2, 3. But that pays out a lot more because it's smaller prizes. They don't have the big jackpot. $600 is the big.
Pick 3, Pick 4.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of Powerball, real quick as we wrap things up, I saw a nice number on the lottery sign coming in this morning for Powerball.
He's always my gauge on how much it is.
$100 million on Powerball this week.
We'll hit the big one.
Next drawing, I should say. Next drawing.
Next drawing's $100 million, and winners have been pretty lucky. We've had lots of Powerball jackpot winners. Now I like to see it at 600,000 or 700,000 because that's when we get the lines. Everybody's run out, and I make my budgets. But we like to give the money away, so let's just keep the winners coming. That's for sure.
I think $100 million might carry us over quite
It's always
well.
$40 million.
That's true. Wonderful. Thank you, sir.